And now we also sometimes behave like Israelites, because when you check the last Sabbath, we were talking about the Sinai covenant. And the Israelites, they thought that by themselves they were going to keep the law of God. But at point you get that they were going contrary to what the will of God was there for. And therefore, we as the Adventists now, yes, we have the commandments. Yes, we are the chosen people. We are the remnant. But you get at times we may go against what we are supposed to preach. Because you see, I like the example you gave as a roadshow. We are like the vehicle that is spreading this gospel so that people may come and believe. But in the other side, you may get that we are supposed to be spreading this. Like, for example, you are supposed to go and spread the Coca-Cola. You are in a roadshow. But then again, you are coming to spread something else. So we as the Adventists, we have to ask ourselves, yes, we are a chosen people, but do we carry the message every time? And are we portraying the correct message that we have been given?
Okay,
yes.
Thank you. Maybe let's go to the next part.
Thank you. The next part, it's about ties that bind.
Mm-hmm.
Ties that bind. I'd like us to first read the book of Deuteronomy, chapter 4, verse 13.
Deuteronomy, somebody to read for us.
Chapter 4, verse 13.
Mm-hmm. Chapter 4, verse 14. It says, "And the Lord commanded me at that time to teach you statutes and judgments, that ye might do them in the land whither ye go over to possess it."
Here we see the covenant or the law having several names, and we have it being called again statutes and testimonies. That is in Psalms 25:10, and also judgments. These judgments were to maintain this special relationship that was between God and the Israelites. We see here the covenant of God and with his people, the Israelites contained various requirements that will be crucial for maintaining their relationship. And it's not different from today's lifestyle. It's not different. We see we've been given here an example of marriage. In marriage, we see, what if we had no boundaries? What if we had no laws or principles that could guide the marriage? What if the husband decides to take a girlfriend, or the friend decides to help himself to the other's wallet, or maybe in a business, maybe one partner decides to just invite another person to venture into their business. We see here that this relationship will not last for long. It will just be for a short time, then it's done or it's over. So the laws or the statutes or the testimonies or the judgments are to guide us, are to maintain these special relationships, or to maintain the how we relate to each other. Even with ourselves, what if one day you just decide, I'm gonna have freedom and I'm not going to abide by my principles, I'm going to just free myself from all the acts that I've been holding myself from doing? You'll not last long, or your integrity or your value will be like a downward spiral. So the commandments or the laws, they are to maintain these blessings that we receive from God each day. Maybe to wind up, I'd like us to read Jeremiah chapter 11, verse 3.
Somebody to read for us in Jeremiah.
Jeremiah 11:23. And there shall be no remnant of them, for I will bring catastrophe on the men of Anathoth, even the year of their punishment.
Also, when we read, we're not going to read it now, but also when we read verse 6 and verse 8, we have the words of the covenant. So the covenant or the law or the statutes or the principles, they are not like burdensome. They are to guide us to our daily lifestyle, how we can live peacefully with other people and also with God. Thank you.
Wow, thank you. In fact, what she is saying, and I concur with that, that every relationship has to have some bindings. And in most cases, we have seen that they need to be in terms of rules and regulations. Even here in Baraton, we have some rules and regulations that even some people are very, sometimes at some point they are uncomfortable with them, but for any relationship to, to exist, there must be some binding rules. And for God with his people, these are the commandments. This is the covenant of commandments. Anyway, let's go to the next part where we are going to see about this law to exist within this covenant. Maybe Brother Wycliffe.
Okay, maybe
before he comes in.
Yeah, let me say something about ties that bind.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Bible through various verses tries to explain in details. When we check Psalm 78 verse 10, talk about statutes. Psalms 15:16, we have testimonies, and then we have commandments and words like the word of the Lord. The covenant of God with his people Israel contained various requirements to maintain the special relationship. And the same is to us now, the Christian, the present believers. There are requirements so that we maintain our special relationship with God.
Thank you. Okay.
Okay, we thank God so far. Let's get to law within the covenant. That is law within the covenant. Then we are going to see, we are being told that now in this, for example, let me start by giving this example. When we think about law in our personal life, what do you think? Maybe some of us may think like the breaking the law, that is the law of Kenya, and there must be a consequence, of course.
Yeah.
And now, when we come to the law within the covenant, now the covenant between God and his people, between God and us, we have the law. And this law we are talking about today is the Ten Commandments. Now, what is the Ten Commandments? The essence of Ten Commandments in the law, in the covenant that God gave to us. We get that the part played by the law within the living eternal reality of the covenant relationship showed that Israel could not follow the ways of other nations. It was like the law could portray how or the kind of life that the Israelites can live or would live. It is the same way as to us. The law of God portrays how we should carry ourselves, how we should live according to the will of God. As the chosen people, we have the law. For you to abide by the covenant, for you to still maintain the covenant that you had with your God, there must be some things that you have to maintain, like the conditions must be there. So for us to have that, be within the covenant that God gave to us, he therefore provided law for us. And he said, for you to keep my covenant, then you have to do this and this. And now that is what is portrayed within the Ten Commandments. And then it said that they could not live by the natural law or even the human needs or desires, even anything, but they could continue in God's holy nation. But they could continue as God's holy nation when they dwell in the covenant, in the law. Now, the law, that is the Ten Commandments, has a significance in the covenant. For you to abide by the covenant, for us to live as the covenant, as the people of God, as the chosen people, then we have to keep the laws of God, because he says that if you love me, then do what? Keep my commandments. Now, for us to keep the commandments of God, that was the essence of the law being in the covenant. Because for you to abide by the covenant or to be maintaining the covenant, you must be given, there must be things you have to do. For example, if I tell you that you are my friend, and then I want our relationship to last longer, there must be things we have to agree. Now, these and these we are supposed to do, and this we are not supposed to do as friends. Therefore, that is what God brought here. Now, He brought the law within the covenant because He wanted to give people directions. When you want to live this way, then you have to do this and this. When you have to keep the covenant, then you should not kill. Then you should obey the Sabbath. That is now to maintain the law.
Yeah, thank you. You know, I concur with you because the commandments of God, by the way, when we talk about this covenant, especially the law, during Israelites, the law, which when you translate it, it is in Hebrew it's called Torah.
Yes.
Torah, when you go to debate the meaning inside there, it's like teachings or maybe instructions. So God was interested for Israel to be instructed along the way from where they were through the desert to land of Canaan, and of course the entire life, whereby this covenant will touch every part of their life. Maybe their daily life, if they it's about agriculture, culture, religion. It will be so that anything they will do, it will be within this covenant. And of course, this morning, God wants to remind us that He is interested. Wherever He has located you, maybe in this school, maybe where you are working, you need to live within that covenant, that you have a relationship with God. There are people, when they go out of this place, or maybe they are told they are not in church, they live with other abidings. And that's what it's supposed to be. Anyway, let's continue looking at it. Let's see something about the stability of God's law from Brother Lonadia.
Yeah. First, let's read Psalms chapter 40, verse 8.
Yeah.
It says that, I delight to do your will, O my God, and your law is within my heart.
Mm-hmm.
So, law, God's law is like His will.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And the will is a written expression of what God expects us to do.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And when God says that, when the psalmist says that, I delight to do your will, to mean, the psalmist says that he delights to do he delights to be in the covenant with the Lord, to do what the covenant entails, to keep what the rules of the covenant. And then it is very interesting that God is the creator. Yeah, He created everything, and He is the moral governor of the world, or the universe. He guides the morality of the world through His laws, through His covenants. And just as a governor, God has sets of rules to govern His government. And first, in His commandments or His sets of constitution, maybe the number 1 to number 4 is between man and God.
Mm-hmm.
And number 5 to the last is between man and man.
Man and man.
Yeah, so these are guide to make stable the laws of God. And God does not depend on us, but we depend on Him. We depend on His laws to survive. We depend on God's statutes, His commandments, to be within His government, to maintain a conducive relationship with God.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you very much for that expound. In fact, let's make it clear this morning also that by keeping the commandments of God, it doesn't mean you can be saved by, getting every street of the content of that law of covenant. No. We are not saved by keeping it. Even Israelites, by the way. It's only we checked there last week when they were given this covenant at Sinai, they took it very lightly when they were saying that we are going to to tackle everything that you have said. But God expected them to depend on Him. In fact, even today, by keeping the commandments, not that you won't be saved, is as a result that you have already been saved. Because when you check the Israelites, it started by God saving them, isn't it? Yeah, in delivering them from Egypt. Then after deliverance, with all that kind of miracles, then now in between the desert, that's where it's giving them now the covenant. So even we brethren, we keep the commandments just as a now show that we have been already saved. It is a sign of showing a true relationship with this God we worship, with this supernatural. Anyway, before we wind up, there will be some comments and maybe responses from the audience, but I would like just to pose this question to the congregation so that I see it is in the last part of our discussion that God is also saying, now, if you obey, in a number of verses, chapters in the Bible, if you obey, I will bless, I will bless, I will bless. And maybe we can read this one to see how it is God about it. Exodus 19:5. So maybe if somebody from the congregation prepare to respond on this as we wind up our lesson today. And maybe if you have a question there, also prepare.
Exodus 19:5.
19:5.
The Bible says, Now therefore, if ye will obey my voice indeed and keep my covenant, then ye shall be a peculiar treasure unto me above all people, for all the earth is mine.
Okay, now that's where my question comes from. Do we obey God in order to get blessings? That's the question. I don't know if it's understood. Do we obey so as a result of obedience we get blessings from God? Have I understood from the congregation? Maybe somebody to attempt from the congregation. We'll give you the mic to respond. Yeah?